Hi, I'm Emily, and I saw there was a question on here about how do you get just a metal that's clean, like not having any aging or wearing on there, just a nice polished metal. Now, of course, you can come to the assets panel here. These are things that ship with Painter. You'll probably find this in the side of your screen or maybe at the bottom. If we scroll to, it's here. So we have metal brushed, which is quite a clean one. We also have metal sandblasted. Now, if you drag and drop that on there, it's gonna look a bit funky, I'd give you that. But actually, if you just increase the tiling of this a little bit, you'll start to get quite a nice metal there. And then if you want it like a little bit shinier, you can take the roughness down. But I do agree, it's still got that kind of, it's got something on there. And I think the reason we don't put in a material that has like nothing on there is because you can make this in the layers stack. So if I just delete that with the bin there, what I'm going to do just to add a really clean metal, I don't need this paint layer, I can get rid of that. I'm just going to add a fill layer with this paint bucket tool here. It's going to fill, it's just going to have the base color for now, which is fine. We might use that. But we want to toggle metallic and roughness in here. And we just want to whack that metallic up like this and take that roughness down like that. If you take it all the way down, you're going to have like a mirrored thing. And if I shift right mouse button, you can see I can spin this and we can see our HDRI is being reflected in there. Now, let's say you've got this shiny metal, but you kind of want to add some wear to it to make it look a bit more realistic. So what we can also do is come back into our assets panel here. And instead of using a material, I'm going to come to these textures here. Now we've got a lot of beautiful grunges in here. If you just scroll down, there's a lot of these nice things here. And depending on the metal that you're making, depending on what the story is behind your texture, you can add in stuff like this to the roughness channel. So for example, grunge fingerprints dusty. That sounds pretty good. So you can just add that in. You can see I've now got this kind of variation going on to my metal in this. It's not quite what I want, but that's okay because this actually comes with some parameters that I can change. So I can come in here and be changing the balance, and then we've got a little bit of control over that. But actually what I like to do is add an adjustment layer to my fill. And you can do this by clicking the magic wand button. And you can just add a levels right there. That's just like in Photoshop. The only difference being is obviously we don't want to be affecting the base color. We want to be affecting this roughness because this is where we put our grunge. So then we can start bringing this up a little bit and maybe bringing down those kind of harsher tones like that. You can even keep it shiny and just have these slightly little, can you see that just as I move that around here? This is probably not the best HDRI for that. And you can change that in the display settings here. For example, I can change to Studio Tomoko. That is like one of my favorites. So now you can see that we've got this nice little bit of variation going on. And if you don't like this grunge that we've put in here, this roughness here, I can just come back with my assets panel and I can find, something a bit different like that. Maybe that's a bit more grungy, or maybe something like this. You can just swap them out just like that. And again, come back into your levels and just even it out a little bit like that. So then we've got this nice kind of metal, but we've got that little bit of variation in there. Because when you're texturing something in 3D, you always need a bit of variation in there. And you see, if that's a little bit too harsh, now this is going to make it a long video, and I'm sorry about that, but if this is a little bit too much grunge going on, like all over, what I like to do as well is I like to then add a fill on top of this, like so on top of the layer itself. And I'm currently making some videos on this to kind of help people understand what adjustment layers are. I'm going to add this fill to it, and in roughness as well, just with roughness, I'm going to come to my assets panel again. I'm not going to pick a grunge this time. I'm actually going to pick what's called a Perlin noise. This is one of my favorites. Perlin noise in there, in that roughness. It's going to take over and it's going to look a bit weird. But I actually want to come into roughness and multiply this over the top. And this means we're getting a little bit of, it's kind of getting cut out slightly. So if I increase this contrast, you're going to see here we've got just this one part that doesn't have it. You don't want it too contrasted, but that's the effect it's giving. And so then we can take the scale down slightly. We can fiddle with the balance. The beautiful thing about Substance, if you don't know what you're doing, you can just fiddle around with the sliders until you find something you like. So there you go. Now we've got this kind of grunge coming in. You can see if I hide that, it was all over our cassette tape. And now we've got it just coming in just in little parts like that. And it's just breaking up that nice grunge we've added. If you don't understand fully what's gone on here, that's totally fine. It's quite an advanced technique to be adding up all of these adjustment layers, and it's something that just comes with practice. I'm making a couple of videos on it now, which I will release on some of my social channels if you want to follow along with that. But if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. I love to talk about everything about Substance. So yeah, I hope this helps.
The more you know.